Greetings and welcome to another round of Master Phil in your corner with your host, me, Master Phil, and we have another guest here, a very, very close friend of mine and actually a mentor of mine. He's been on the podcast before, so he's definitely a repeat offender here. Joe Rubino. We're going to get a little bit into his background right after the plugs we do here. Now, we have to thank Master Phil for this podcast and philross.com. Go check it out. Check out all the different training modalities that we have available. We have online training. We have seminars, workshops, so forth, some one-on-ones. And, check out the site. We also have Fit Team available. Stuff is good stuff. High quality, all natural proteins, shakes, so forth. And we also have the P3 training group, as well as Warrior Island and the Under Project. That's for athletic underwear. This is a very special episode. This is why I have a very special guest on. This is episode number 100. This is our 100th. We've hit the century mark. So, Joe, welcome. Yes, round of applause. Joe, tell everyone about your background. I mean, I look at you as, my authority on striking, especially, when it comes to hands, boxing, and so forth. I learned a great deal from you. I had some experience before, but what you did was you made me a lot better. And I really like the philosophy and the training methodology that you put forth. And I saw how you worked with fighters and, other fighters in our camp, and then me as well. But if you want to give the audience who maybe haven't heard you before, what your background is.
Okay. Well, thank you, Phil, first for inviting me on your 100th episode. It's an honor. I appreciate it. And my background is, I grew up in Brooklyn, moved to New Jersey in the early 80s. I studied martial arts when I was young. I started boxing, I guess officially when I was around 15. Although probably before that, my dad, teaching me a little bit of boxing because he boxed in the Navy. But officially at 15, I studied a martial arts style called Nisei Goju under Frank Ruiz and Harry Rosenstein, and received a black belt in that style. Along the way, I competed in boxing. I competed in kickboxing. Studied a little wrestling as I got older. Didn't really start wrestling until I was in my 30s, but I was in the wrestling room in the high schools. And then when I had my own gym, I had some top-notch wrestlers in the room, Division I, and learned a lot from them. So did a little bit of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for about 9 months to a year, and a little bit of judo when I was young. And so I have a pretty mixed background. You know that when I had my own gym, I was teaching pretty much mixed martial arts, mixing it all together. So would you.
Yep.
That's pretty much my background.
Yeah. I'll tell you, it's funny because back then we were kind of looked at as like a little bit like heretics, because nobody mixed the martial arts till after the Gracies. But the Gracies with the UFC, and talking about that, I'd also like to dedicate this episode to one of our fallen friends. We just got the terrible news about the death of Soke Michael DePasquale. He was very involved in the UFC. He was a commentator. He was a very well respected judge for the UFC since its inception. He did a ton for the martial arts. He really did. Especially everyone in our area. His father founded the American Jiu-Jitsu Federation, and Mr. DePasquale Sr. and Mike's mom were in Bruce Lee movies. A lot of people don't even know that. He was the father used to be a New York City cop. So I had a lot of practical experience back when you could actually be a cop and do something. Mike helped out a lot of people, and he had a very unique situation, having his parents, who were, fantastic martial artists, Mike was a good looking guy too. And, he was a great martial artist, and he had charisma, and him being single also helped him out. He was able to get out there and really be involved in every aspect of martial arts for a long time. And, we're all we're going to miss him. And
For sure. Great guy, and terrific martial artist.
Yeah.
Did a tremendous amount for martial arts. Just, I remember when he had magazines. Remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
When
Yeah.
magazines were still big. I think he had two of them. And
Yes.
yeah, he was just a terrific guy and great martial artist. He'll be missed.
I don't know if you know this, but he's the one who inducted me into the Hall of Fame in 2005, and he gave the speech introducing me too.
Was that right? Wow.
Yeah. I mean, good guy. I was in his magazine a few times, and I was just sad. But hey, man, you know what? We have to carry it on and keep his name out there, and what he's done and what his family has done, for the arts. But talking about that, this thing that we're not as young as we used to be.
For sure.
And I'm reminded by that every day when I wake up and every night when I go to bed. And there's something I've really just been really thinking about, and neither of us are competing anymore. I haven't competed in well over a decade, and I'll never compete again. And you haven't competed in a long time either. Of course, being my senior as well, so you've been out of it for a long time.
Yep.
But the point of training is to A, keep in shape, and B, be able to defend yourself. And I'm trying to really figure out like the perfect formula. I don't know if that's possible because we have our muscle memory built in from years and years and years of training. Not everybody has that.
Yep.
And I don't know if most people are going to ever develop that because they didn't do the years and years of training. But the thing that I'm trying to figure out is how much actual training that's practical does someone really need to do to be able to effectively defend themselves? So, we can look at it in many different aspects. One is, the striking and grappling. What do you do there? Then you also have to contend with weapons. How much do you shoot? Do you practice with a knife? I try to do all these different things. I don't obviously compete in jiu-jitsu anymore, but I'll still get on a mat once in a while, roll around and so forth. And I'm hitting the speed bag, the heavy bag. Just keep it moving the whole time. I'm hitting my kettlebells and calisthenics and everything. But I think we probably have to break this down into a couple of different areas. But what are some of your thoughts on that? Let's start with the base and I'm going to go back to what Bruce Lee said, and he said a boxer or a wrestler with a year of experience would beat any martial arts with 15 years of experience.
Well, and you and I have talked about this many times. I still personally believe that boxing and wrestling needs to be your foundation. And, they're probably one of the oldest martial arts around. A lot of people never considered boxing and wrestling martial arts until the UFC came along.
Yeah.
Right. But, in actuality, both are tremendous self-defense. Understanding they have their limitations. Yes. Boxer goes to the ground, he's like a fish out of water.
Yep.
Wrestler has to use hands. No, he wants to take the guy to the ground.
Right.
He doesn't want to stand up. He doesn't want to stand up and fight. So, but you put the two together, and now you have a pretty good, a well-rounded, but empty-handed self-defense.
Yes.
And I think that has to be a base. It's tough without that base. And the other thing about boxing and wrestling is they go live. Many martial arts do not go live. They kick pads, they break wood, do a lot of kata, and all those things. They may have to place. But if you don't mix it up, when you get in the street, it's a big difference when a situation occurs. Than standing there and one person throwing a punch and now it's your turn.
Yeah.
The street's a lot different. and you're also going to be immediately under stress.
Yes.
So with the wrestling and the boxing, mixing it up,
Mm-hmm.
even if you just spar and never even competed, right?
Well, yeah.
If you just wrestled in a wrestling room and never got on the wrestling mat and competed, you're still mixing it up.
Mm-hmm.
And when you mix it up, you are not only affecting your muscle memory, but you're getting used to being hit. You're getting used to being thrown around. You're getting used to and you're getting used to hit somebody. Believe it or not, even hitting somebody, like with a punch,
Mm-hmm.
can take getting used to, right?
Yes.
In the face,
Mm-hmm.
throwing somebody like in wrestling, it takes getting used to and landing.
Yes.
So I'm a firm believer in wrestling and boxing being the foundation. Then you can build on it. Add some
Yes.
kick, add some Brazilian jiu-jitsu, some judo, etc. And of course, eventually you got to get to weapon self-defense in case you ever do face somebody with a weapon. But yeah, that's my thoughts on it. I also think you should be in some kind of condition,
Yeah.
physically, to be optimal, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And the other thing is, if you're going to train, let's say you're training against a boxer to face a boxer. Well, now you're trained to face against the guy who's probably best out of any martial arts with their hands.
Yes.
Right. I mean, without a doubt, right? They're probably the best with their hands.
Yeah, there's no probably about it.
Right.
The best. I mean, you put a good boxer can beat someone who has a multitude of martial arts training just by using boxing skills and footwork.
That's right. So you want to train to go against the best. So you're going to train against hands. Train like you're going to face a boxer in the street. Don't train like you're going to face somebody who's drunk in a bar. And that's an easy opponent.
Yes.
Train your hands to be against a boxer. If you're going to train to grapple against a wrestler, or a BJJ guy, or the combined guy like you, the combined wrestler BJJ guy. You're going to be the toughest grappler I'm ever going to face in the street if I get the grappling, right? Because you're good, both. You're a Division I wrestler, you black belt in BJJ. I mean, so I want to train as if I'm going to face the best in that particular discipline. If you don't, well, if you wind up facing somebody who is trained, if you wind up facing somebody who's decent with the hands or decent at grappling, you're going to have a hard time.
Yeah.
So it's not just what you learn and what you build as your foundation, it's how you train that matters, I think, a lot too.
Yeah. It's how you train, because when you have that live component, I talk about in Survival Strong book, I talk about the 3 F's, because we're all taught in psychology, the fight or flight syndrome. Well, in reality, there's also the freeze, because most people, when they're confronted for the first time, they freeze up. And especially the first time they get hit, they can't believe that they've been actually hit. But for guys like us, I mean, look, I don't do much contact anymore like I used to. I started doing a little jujitsu.
Me either. I don't either. Yeah.
But the thing is, I jumped on the mat, and honestly, because we always, this other things, I always think, gosh, can I still do it? Am I still any good? But you know what? All the decades of doing it, it was
your
like
muscle memory.
Yeah, it was like nothing. It really was. So kind of got rid of that apprehension. It's like, gosh, I'm not rolling a lot. I'm not boxing a lot. I'm not, can I still do it? But as long as you stay in shape and you practice your skills and drills,
exactly,
that's going to go a long way.
That's right. And that's why I work out. People say, we're trying to lift to 100. I said, no, I'm trying to live to whatever age I'm going to live to, but to be able to do some of the things I still want to do. Am I as fast as I was when I was younger? No. Can I move as quickly? Am I as flexible? No. But I can still do a lot of things.
Oh, yeah.
And when I had my gym, I was training a lot of these guys, and I was sparring with them at that point, 40 to 50 years old, 50 plus, whatever. And I was still sparring. I made a determination at like 55 years old. I wasn't going to spar anymore because it took so many shots to my head. Enough. I don't know what I'm going to be like when I'm 75, 80 years old, but I don't want to, I decided I'm not going to take any more shots to my head, but I still try to get in there and do as much as I can without fully going at it. As far as grappling goes, I try to grapple as much as I can, get in there and mix it up. But it's all about what's in your muscle memory.
Right.
right? If you're used to taking a punch and getting hit, you go through it. You know,
Yeah.
your nose gets broken, you don't even realize it. You go right through it because you're accustomed to it. Anybody else gets a nose broken, fight's over.
Yeah.
Over. You know, just a simple thing like that. And if you're used to just the other person throws a punch, you block, and now it's your turn to throw 7 techniques.
Yeah.
Once you get hit, all that goes away.
Yep.
And if you think that's going to apply when the situation is live and you're under stress, duress, things that happen instantaneously, that's not going to do it.
Yeah.
It's not going to do it. I've seen a lot of guys, Phil, when I was younger, who claimed they were, you know, black belts, and maybe they were, but they got their butts handed to them because they just didn't train properly. You know, they didn't know what it was like to really mix it up. All of the training was choreography,
Yes,
and kata, you know, and that's fine,
yeah.
but it doesn't have a place for the street. That's the problem. That's where you're going to run into trouble.
No, yeah. I mean, I still like once a week I do them.
Yeah.
You know, it helps with my flexibility.
Oh, it has a purpose for sure.
Yeah, and you know what? It's a really good workout if you do it hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I know 18 forms, so
Yeah.
I mean, I blow through those, and you know, I feel pretty good. You know, it keeps me sharp, keeps me, you know, whatever. But I mean, you know, I have my druthers. I'm going to go work my bags, you know, or you know, do that more. But which I do that more times a week. But still, it's you know. So, you know, we have now as we're having this conversation, it's making me think of things. Look, we have stuff that we have to do because we have a lot of experience, okay? But we know kind of what to do to stay in shape and to stay effective in the street, let's say. What about someone who doesn't have the background? What the heck can they do? You know, you got somebody who's like, let's say a 40-year-old woman. She's like, gosh, I want to be able to protect myself. You know, what do you think she should do? Or like some 50-year-old guy who's, you know, not done anything since high school basketball, you know, and, you know, he says, gosh, you know, I'm kind of getting nervous. I have to protect myself out there in the street because, hey, you know, cops aren't going to get there. You know, I have to protect myself. I have to protect my family, you know, other than, you know, just having a gun. And the other thing is, that's a whole nother thing too. When you get a gun, you have to practice. People think, oh gosh, I got a gun, I'm safe. Yeah, no, you have to practice. Yeah, you know, I practice every week. Okay. And even when I'm not, I'm using my laser gun.
Yep.
Why? Because like this morning, I was practicing my knife cuts this morning. I did my warm-up, my morning routine. I just got out there with the knife and started working. Why? Because, you know, it has to be part of what you do. But now, if you're a person starting off, what do you think the first type of training they should do to be able to?
Well, I think they should get into some kind of condition. Would be good, and then at a minimum, you could take a self-defense course.
Mm-hmm.
So, I just held a self-defense. You know, I'm 2 days a week at the YMCA,
Yes.
and we're doing that. And we were holding a self-defense for women's course on Sunday mornings.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the class, you know, we took surveys. We asked the women how they felt. Did they feel? And some of the comments you hear were, I feel more empowered. I feel more confident. I feel more safe, you know.
Yeah.
And all they did was, it was 6 weeks of about an hour and a half clear class every Sunday morning. But we taught them basic self-defense moves. Now, is that going to make them be able to handle every situation in the street? No, but at least they know something. At least they know something. If they can recall it, they can at least do something. You know, you're going to practice it over and over again to get it into your muscle memory. And I told them that we don't have time in 6 weeks to do that.
No.
But like Bruce Lee said, right? I fear more the guy who practices one move 1,000 times than the guy who practices 1,000 moves one time.
Yeah.
And so you got to practice.
I think it was 10,000, but
whatever. And you know, you got to practice it. And I told them all, practice it at home, go home. But it was basic self-defense moves. We taught them. If you get grabbed from behind, if you get grabbed from the front, if you take it to the ground, you know.
Now, would you recommend? And this is just me thinking. I was talking. Would you recommend that they learn basic boxing and footwork as part of it?
Boxing and what?
And footwork.
Sorry.
As part
footwork.
of it.
Yeah, well, you and I both know footwork is the most important thing. Not both in boxing, wrestling,
Whatever.
whatever.
Yeah.
But and that's the one that's most ignored. Am I right? That's the one that's most
100%. 100%.
And your footwork can give you a tremendous advantage in a street fight. Tremendous advantage. And yeah, I think that's the way we started the self-defense class. As a matter of fact, so you hit it right on the head. Yeah. We started with footwork.
That's what I would do.
Yeah. Moving around, having a good foundation, being stable, being able to catch. If you go off balance, catch your balance again, get back into your position, into your stance. That's what we started with. And then we started with basic punches and basic blocks.
And then I don't know if you got to do this in a 6-week time period, but in my mind, I would think the next thing to do is to teach them a takedown defense.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
If you saw, we've always been on the same page, but if you saw,
well, you know why? Because you know why? Because we actually did this thing. We actually fought. And,
yes, exactly.
And actually, we're getting hit and taken down and pushed into walls or whatever it took. So look, it's either going to work or it's not going to work. But yes, I like that. So if we were going to tell people listening to this, first thing you have to do is work on some of your hand skills, work on your footwork, a takedown defense, and basic grabs and holds for defensive time.
Exactly. And that's why a lot of people move towards Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because it has a lot of that in it, right? Yeah. Now, I think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a terrific martial art, and what the Gracies did for the sport and martial art was phenomenal. Probably Bruce Lee and the Gracies were two of the most influential to martial arts in the history of martial arts. But I think that there's parts of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that's best left for the sport, like the guard, going down on your back and on the guard. You don't want to do that in the street. That's a last resort. You definitely don't want to be on your back for so many reasons. You drop to your back, the first thing a good street fighter is going to do is stomp you in the groin. You in the groin, kick you in the groin. You try to pull a guard, that's what they're going to do. And so I think that part is for the sport. But there's a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that's also good for the street. And that's why a lot of people are attracted to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because it will help you defend yourself. It will, if you can learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, even a year's worth, it will help you in the street.
Oh yeah. Well, the thing is, the one thing that it has that live component.
That's right.
Right. Hey, listen, you know what it's like. You get your forearm in your face when you're on the mat. You get arms in your throat.
Yeah.
You're getting choked. You're getting your elbows yanked. You're getting your knees cranked.
Keeping your composure. Right.
Yeah. I mean, most people never face that. And just the fact that you're dealing with that, because look, and then hopefully the school that you train at will do a lot on takedowns, because you defend yourself here and then you grab the guy and take him down.
Right. Well, that's the area that I think a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu schools are lacking, is takedowns. Yeah. And that's why I think somebody like you and Kyle Farrison.
Yeah, Kyle's fantastic.
But both of you, because you have that tremendous wrestling background, along with the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background. And you can take the good stuff from the wrestling, which of course is the takedowns. I think wrestlers are the best at takedowns. Yep. And incorporate that in. And yeah, that's optimal. Yeah, that's the best thing you can do.
I mean, to me, the best thing from wrestling for this are the takedowns and the top control and pressure from wrestling. You have a good wrestler on top of you, it sucks.
Well, the hips are always in the right place, and that's the key, and it takes time to become accustomed to doing that and being in the right position, the right place. But yeah, that's why I think that's why if you look at the UFC, at the beginning it was BJJ guys, because the wrestlers didn't know about how to stop getting tapped out or choked out. Yeah. Once the wrestlers figured that out, look who the champions are now. Mostly wrestlers. Yeah.
It's funny because I remember when I first started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I would get I'd get triangled all the time.
Me too.
Trying to pass through.
I get all kinds of triangles, all kinds of choked down.
Choked.
Yeah.
But we learn.
Yeah, you learn. And then the wrestlers have that superiority in the takedown, and in their hips always being in the right position.
Right.
And then they can start, plus they're learning Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, they can start to dominate those Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys that don't have that, and that's what happened in the UFC.
Yep.
They learned all that.
I wound up actually just seeing that one of the tournaments we had, the Naga Worlds a couple weeks ago, and had some of our, kids and adults in it. One of the kids, a teenager, and he's going against a person who is sponsored in the finals. Very jujitsu-y. I swear, he just did 100% wrestling and wound up winning like convincing fashion with the sponsored person, with the sponsor in the corner, the sponsored gi, and the whole thing. And the other person was very flexible, had good jujitsu, could roll around, but man, just his pounding was just way too much.
Yeah. So that's, again, it comes back to mixing. There's no one system that's perfect.
Nope.
And if you take the best from each one and mix it together, man, you've got the ideal system.
Yeah.
And Bruce Lee was way ahead in saying that, right?
He was, and the thing is, again, in the martial arts world, he was looked at as a heretic. But you know what's really funny, though? If you look back, and I actually wrote a paper on this in college, right? Because we were doing it on historical, like ancient Greece stuff. That back then, the martial arts were kind of mixed together, and then they became fragmented. Due to different reasons. Could be topography, could have been a particular master, and then he just wanted to make it suited to his skills, or it could have been because it evolved more into a sport as opposed to combat. Because if you look at pancration was around in the first Olympics.
Right.
Yeah, they had boxing, wrestling, pancration, and pancration is MMA.
True.
And then they got broken apart. Because if you look at let's say Taekwondo, right? Why are there a lot of jumping kicks? Well, because the Taekwondo people early on, the Silla dynasty, they were training to knock samurai warriors off of the horses. And Korea is very mountainous, so they would jump up and kick a samurai warrior off of the horse. So that's why these high flying kicks.
Yeah, interesting.
And if you look at some of these kung fu styles with the horse stance, right? You say, why would you ever do that? Well, you know what? When we're fighting on terra firma, yeah, sure, fine. They fought in boats sometimes. So you try to do our fancy boxing footwork in a boat, what's going to happen? You're falling down. So they hit the different reasons. And even like you look at like a deep front stance, right? If you're fighting on a mountain or on a stair, you have to be in that kind of stance.
Right.
So there's a lot of reasons for it, but you have to understand the reasons for it and say, well, what's the purpose? How does it really serve you right now? Well, it's good for maybe conditioning and learning techniques, but as far as practicality, it's not as practical.
Effective, yeah.
Right. Well, if you look at the, Aiki Jiu-Jitsu, right? All the different small joint locks, okay? And relative, and why they took strikes out, right? Because they were practicing to go against a samurai warrior. Why am I going to punch a guy with armor on?
Yeah, true.
Right? I'll break my hand. So what am I going to do? I'm going to look for a wrist lock or an elbow lock or something like that. So you got to look where it comes from. So
interesting.
Yeah. I really wanted to study it and know, like, why. And it's funny because if you look at some of the arts and say, well, gosh, what do you need? I know we really didn't get into the knife and gun stuff, but we can definitely do that in another one. But one of the things that got me into that was when I started studying Bondo. And Bondo back in the day, to be the complete warrior, you had to be able to use a bow and arrow, bladed weapons, and firearms, as well as Naban, which is the grappling, and obviously the Lethwei, which is the 9 points of combat. Head, fists, elbows, feet, knees. So that's what inspired me to start getting into weapons, because I never really was that much into them, except I liked using my knife because my grandfather always told me using a knife was good. So,
I've never been much into weapons either, but I did some with you, but that was it. Isn't wrestling the oldest? Is wrestling the oldest?
Yeah, wrestling's got to be the oldest martial art. And again, like you said, they didn't even consider it a martial art till a while ago. But if you look at the root word, right? Martial. What is martial? Warring, combat.
Right.
Warring art. It's how much more combat you're going to do if what more you want when you're doing wrestling or boxing? How is that not a combat art? That's
Yeah.
like those are ultimate levels of combat. Subduing someone or knocking them out. It's pretty combative.
Yeah. I did mostly when I was younger, martial arts, boxing, kickboxing. I competed in boxing and kickboxing, but wrestling came at a much later date. But I got to tell you, I have grown to respect wrestling so much. And one of it from being thrown around in the wrestling room, in the high school wrestling room. I was 30 years old and being thrown around by these high school wrestlers, the heavyweight guys. But I knew a little judo, so I could throw them a little bit. But I mean, I didn't know that, judo doesn't practice when you shoot in the legs and stuff like that. No. So, yeah, I mean, I grew to not only respect it, but to love the sport. I wish it was in Brooklyn. It's a strange thing. It was on Long Island, and I think Long Island has pretty good wrestling.
Oh, right? They still do. Do.
So, but it was never in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but I wish it was, because I love wrestling. I think it's a fantastic sport. And I don't know of any athlete on the planet who's in better condition than a top-notch wrestler, Division I wrestler.
No, not. It's funny because, I think it had something to do with the cities, because my dad grew up in Patterson. They didn't have wrestling there. And he wound up loving the sport. I mean, he really just took it to the crazy level. He wound up becoming an international referee. Actually his name is on the wrestling mats at Ridgewood High School.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, he really, he and I started the junior wrestling program there.
Okay.
Yeah. But again, a city kid, and maybe it had to do with the city situation. I don't know.
Maybe, but I think it's a fantastic sport. If I had young children, young boys, I would definitely say, do some wrestling right away. Before boxing, before anything, do wrestling. Start with wrestling, do wrestling. It's a fantastic sport, and I respect those guys tremendously, especially you at Division I level. I mean, that's brutal. Division I, brutal. People don't realize the kind of condition Division I wrestlers are in. They just don't understand what they go through in training. The training is more brutal than the competition.
Oh yeah, competition is the easy part. I only actually lasted 2 years. So I got injured, and then I went from 158 to 202.
Wow.
That coach wasn't too happy, and I'm like, I'm never making 158 again. Yeah. I just can't do it. So I went and played rugby, and then I got full into my martial arts. So, well, I couldn't do anything. I had my leg in a cast, so I started lifting weights.
But the training is brutal, right?
Oh, it's brutal. Just to give you an idea, preseason. Every other day we would run the stairs in Bird Stadium, and then do another 5 miles after that, and then hit the weight room. And then the other days we would do our drilling, and then do a whole bunch of other exercise like sprints and all that kind of stuff. And that was preseason. We started that in August. So, yeah.
I mean, I know boxers and kickboxers are in great condition too, but I just think wrestling conditioning is just.
Yeah, it's hard to hide out in a wrestling mat. I mean, like, look, when boxing, kickboxing, sometimes you can take a little rest, get a little respite. Believe me, it's not easy at all.
No, you're just getting hit, so it's not.
You're still getting hit, or the potential getting hit. And jiu-jitsu, you can kind of like stall in a position, hold out for a while. Like I can still go 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes jiu-jitsu, no problem. I can't wrestle that long.
That's right.
Right. So, but wrestling, man, it's like bang, bang, bang. It's snapping the head and bang with the arms.
Yeah. Well, what I like about wrestling is that you really need all of the components. You need to be a good athlete.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be strong.
Yep.
You need to be quick reflexes. You need to be tough mentally.
Yep.
You need to be thinking. You can't be, you need to be thinking out there. Yeah. So it puts all of them together. I mean, you really need everything in wrestling. And I mean, probably mostly true for boxing and kickboxing too, but I don't think to the depth of wrestling, it's just different.
It's a grind. It's a grind.
It's a grind, yeah, but it's great sport. Great. And they put that as the foundation with boxing, and that's what I'm saying. There's where you start right there, boxing and wrestling.
That's what I was. You just pulled it back in together for me. That's so when we're starting someone off, you have to learn boxing and wrestling first.
Right.
The reason why I would say start with the boxing first is because people can maybe accomplish that a little bit easier, and you can practice it on your own.
Yeah, I think so.
They can at least have something. Look, be able to block and throw a punch.
Yep.
It's got to be number one.
And move in their stance, move around their footwork, you know.
Yeah. Cool. So there you got it. There you have it, people. You know what? When you're starting off, learn how to box and wrestle, and then everything else falls into place after that. So, hey, Joe, again, want to thank you for coming on.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. My honor. Especially your 100th one. Yeah.
I know, right? Number 100. We're going to get this one out there. Thank you, audience, for listening. Hope you learned something. Strength and honor.
Thank you.